gainful employment. And I'm going to try and do a sort of like a marker board where I'm going to be doing a display of what gainful employment is and why we should have it. So I'm just going to turn the screen around and you're going to see a white page. Now, see this white page? On this white page, I'm going to draw out, just a second, I'm just going to position the light better. A bit more light. I'm going to be, whoopsie daisies, drawing out some diagrams for you so that you can see why we have gainful employment enshrined in the Constitution. So firstly, we have, as the head of the household, the man. Excuse my writing. So, the man, okay? Then we have the woman. And the woman and the man have the house together. Okay? Now, marriage is when a man and a woman come together, the two become one flesh and they produce children. Okay? So the man and the woman produce children. The child. The child. Okay? Now, the man is the provider, naturally. The man is the provider. Why? Because he's physically stronger, generally speaking. Pound for pound, men are stronger than women. So the man is the provider, and the woman is the homemaker. She's the carer. She bestows words of wisdom on the children. She creates a home environment, a sense of belonging, a sense of togetherness, along with the man, but to a greater extent, I would say, in the house. So the house. And this is the family unit. You see all of that? Okay. So we have the family unit. We have the man who's the head of the household. He's physically stronger. He's the provider and the protector. Okay. So he would lay his life down for the woman and the children. So everything I have stated here, obviously the adversary or the opposer, or the Satan in other words, would want the opposite of that, because he is the opposer, which means the opposite one. The Satan is the opposer, the opposite one. And so he wants to make everything opposite to how God intended it, so that he can harm the individual members. See, God, the man is similar to God in the sense that he is providing and protecting the family unit, providing for and protecting to some extent the family unit. So this is why man is the head of the household. So we'll go over here and say head of house. Now women have been trained to be triggered by this, that they would sort of resist it and go, no, girls. And this is the sort of the feminist movement that has given woman a false sense of independence. So it's independence, a false sense of, I would say, incumbency, a false sense of incumbency, a false sense of independence. Okay, so you have the incumbency and the independence, right? So these false senses, and got a little bit out of the screen. These false senses are weapons of the opposer. Okay, following now? So we have the man, we have the woman, and they are equal in value but not in nature. Man and woman equal in value but not in nature. We're not the same. You know, sometimes people think we have to be the same to be valued the same, and that's not the case. Woman is very valuable as the homemaker. She is very, very necessary in the home. Absolutely. When the man is away at work, the woman is, in a way, running the world. She is, in a way, intrinsic and essential in that position to ensure the integrity of the family unit. So all of this returns to the family unit, which is what? It's the fundamental unit of society. So if you imagine society as a body, you have these family units all over. So this is the family unit, but you have these family units all over the place, one over there, one over there, one over there. That's making up the body of society, like the cells in your body make up your skin and your bones and your nails. This makes up all of society. So that's why it's called the fundamental unit of society, just like your cell is the fundamental unit of the body. So the proper functioning of the family unit is essential to its integrity, just like the proper functioning of the cell is essential to its integrity. Now, God has made us very, very starkly aware, very explicitly aware of what is important for the preservation of the integrity of the family unit. So for protecting the family and making sure that it's strong and that it's functioning right, all of those things have been actually enshrined in the Constitution for the preservation of the family unit. Now, this is the structural, or the structure of the family unit, rather. And now we have to think of the financial. So there's both, or the economic. So there's both the structural distribution of the family unit, who's where, and then there's the provision of the family unit, which finances each individual in their appropriate role. So what's required then for the man to maintain the appropriate role within society? Well, our forefathers knew what it was, and here it is, the title of this video: Gainful Employment. Now, gainful employment is employment that ensures that you, as the man of the household, can in fact provide for and protect your family unit. Let that sink in. This here, which was enshrined and is enshrined in the Constitution of Ireland, gainful employment, is absolutely paramount, essential or vital to the integrity, the proper functioning and the preservation of the family unit. So again, gainful employment is enshrined in the Constitution. So our forefathers knew, so to speak, our ancestors, the ones who wrote the Irish Constitution and enacted it in 1939, I think it was, they knew the importance economically of enshrining gainful employment as paramount to the family unit's integrity, and it became the right, the constitutional right of the man to expect that when he's working he has gainful employment. So let's look at gainful employment now and really learn what it is that enables gainful employment. What it is that enables gainful employment is the man has enough at the end of the week after he has paid for house, food, heat, clothing, health. Not talking about health insurance now, just health care. Travel, necessary travel, that is. I'm not talking about your holidays now, folks. So these things are absolutely, fundamentally, the right of the man to expect that when he's working, even on minimum, they come up with these terms, and these terms have not been enshrined in the Constitution. So all we can deduce is that so-called minimum wage must be equal to gainful employment. Because when the man is working 39 hours or whatever the full-time week is decided as being, he must be able to pay for house, food, heat, clothing, healthcare, travel, family, and still have a little bit of gain at the end of all of that. He still has gain. Now, whilst the amount of gain is not enshrined in the Constitution, there still must be gain. So how many people can do all of this? We're not talking about the employment of the woman. This is solely the employment of the man. Do you see the point? So the employment of the man alone must be able to provide all of these things. In order for gainful employment, which has been enshrined in the Irish Constitution, to be upheld, preserved, and maintained for the purpose of the integrity of the family unit, which is, as a knock-on effect, the integrity of the society or the nation. So what you must do then as an Irish person is expect that the government are capable of, or qualified to, or competent enough to ensure that when it has implemented its financial systems, this has most certainly been afforded the man. If you don't afford the man this, which is his right, you have removed him as the head of the household. And that's what the opposer, the Satan, the opposer, the opposite one, wanted to do. Why? Because his goal is to destroy the family unit. Because if he can divide all of these people, they all become easier targets. Just like when the wolf tries to divide his prey from the herd. They don't have that safety in numbers. They don't have that security if they're all in different places doing different things. And that's exactly where the opposer wants them. The man, as the head of the household, the provider and the protector, is under attack for a long time by feminists who were creating in the minds of the youth a false expectation of independence and incumbency to be perceived by others in society as being independent. There's no incumbency on a woman to appear to other women as independent in order to feel validated as a member of society. It's absolutely the case that a woman who is the homemaker has been already validated as a member of society by filling her appropriate and natural role. Anybody who tries to go against the nature of God will see harm. That harm mightn't be immediately perceivable, but you will eventually see it, and it will do lots of harm to the family unit and therefore the society and the nation. Now, we know why, because the Satan opposes. He's the opposite one. He wants to destroy the family unit. How did they bring gainful employment to a halt in terms of what they were publicly perceived as having to do for the people, the government and the people, the Minister for Finance and his employees? Why are they failing to ensure this? The answer is because they don't talk about this term. They have come up with a new term which doesn't give you the expectation of these things which gainful employment does. They've come up with a new term which is the living wage. They talk about the living wage. The living wage, just like minimum wage, has nothing to do with our Constitution. It hasn't even been mentioned in there. But gainful employment is the expectation of the man when he goes to work. So if gainful employment isn't even been talked about, how would you even know that there's an expectation that the government would provide gain? So what did the devil do? He told his men to stop talking about the things that he wanted to remove and let time pass and the people who knew about it die off. Then he would start entering in his own terms, which people would then get used to and sort of expect, because of their ignorance, are the norm. Minimum wage, the living wage. These terms are not in our Constitution. These terms are invented by bureaucrats who are in the pocket of the devil and they in his. Or rather he in theirs. So the point I'm making is that what they're doing is deliberately removing the man as the head of the household without saying it. They're doing it by not affording him the gainful employment. And they're not even saying that. So it's deception by omission. This is deception by omission. And to omit a detail is to fail to mention it. So if you fail to mention to people that they should have an expectation that when they go to work they'll have gainful employment, which will see them able to afford a house, food, heat, clothing, healthcare, travel for the entire family, why would they expect then that they would be able, if they impregnated a woman, to put a roof over her head and feed her? So then you would obviously be more vulnerable to thinking of the other option, which is kill the baby, which they've recently made in your perception, something that's available to you, when actually the Constitution goes against it. So all they're doing to you right now is to attack the child, which is the most vulnerable member of society. And what do wolves do? They attack the vulnerable, but first they isolate them from the herd. So now all the children are at the creche being filled with satanic rhetoric so that their souls will burn in hell. They've kept daddy busy because he can't afford to take rest or spend time with the children as much because he's at work trying to make ends meet. The woman is now at work as well because Beyonce said girls run the world, and she has now an expectation of herself that she should be at work in order to be validated as an acceptable member of society, when actually she should be at home in the house that the man has provided by his work, taking care of the children. So Satan dethroned the man as head of the household. He removed him as the head of the house so he could attack the woman, send her to work, and then attack the children in her absence. So the attack is spiritual, psychological, and intellectual. It's happening on those levels subliminally. So that means like out of the immediate conscious mind, sort of just outside of it, but it's still repetitive messaging and imaging, so that the child is learning indirectly what not to do, so that they would end up burning in hell, and so that their family unit would also, to a worse degree than their own parents' family unit, be vulnerable to the attacks of the devil. So they've removed the gainful employment from the conversation, superimposed the living wage and minimum wage, none of which talk about gainful employment at all, or the expected amount that somebody should earn in order to be able to run their household and see gain at the end. So they say there's cost of living crisis, but they don't talk about the cost of living, so that people will have a clear number in their mind of what that amount should be. So that then there's an expectation that obviously if you're going to go to work, that your work should at least pay for the cost of living and give you some gain afterwards. It should at least do that, not at most, at least, so that if you want to talk about minimum wage, that should equate to gainful employment. The living wage doesn't talk about gain at all. It only talks about living. So the only expectation you should have by that terminology or phraseology is that they'll keep you alive. Not that you'll be independent as a man over your own household and have some gain so that you can help your neighbour as God has commanded. He said, work with your hands so that when you have done so, you will have some gainful amount left over to give to your neighbour in need. So that's why the gainful aspect is so important, because it's the economic glue that keeps society afloat. And so what's ridiculous is that man goes to work now and woman goes to work now, and they pay the government. So that's where the government get their money, from the man and the woman working. Okay, but even that amount isn't enough. Why? Because they're telling the woman that when she goes to work, that when she becomes pregnant, that she has to put her hand out to the government for money just to pay for her children, even though the man and her are working. So how far away from gainful employment are we? We're so far away from gainful employment that now the man and the woman are working and they're still falling short, such that when the woman becomes pregnant, she's putting her hands out to the government just to feed her child, which is a crime. That's criminal. So gainful employment is not only omitted from the conversation, now they're committing these atrocities. If the government get their money from the woman, why does the woman have to put her hand out to take money from the government afterwards? Why does she need to put her hand out to take the money into her hand when she's working so that the household can stay afloat? What the government are effectively doing is they're orchestrating and fabricating financial facades, fake situations that aren't actually occurring, apart from the fact that they're trying to create the facade that they are by, crunching the numbers and manipulating the numbers on the screen. Computer says no stuff, so that the man and the woman would actually put their hand out to the government. If the man and the woman are giving the government their money, why would the woman ever put her hand out to the government to get money? That's like giving money to the government so that you can get it back when you're pregnant, at your most vulnerable as a woman. So the government, what they're trying to do is they're playing a psychological game, basically saying, you need us to feed your children. We pay for your children, therefore we own them. You should have no expectation that your children are your own, because you can't even afford them, because you come to us when you're pregnant for subsistence checks. So they're lying to you, they're pouring water on your head and telling you it's raining. They're absolutely liars, and they're not even having the conversation about gainful employment, because Satan has been attacking the economy of the household through his central banks, through his manipulators in government finances, and etc., in order to make the woman vulnerable to attack. So the man is totally emasculated. She's at work now. He's been removed as head of the household. She's at work and she's still not able to feed her children off the money she's earning. That's what they're telling her. Put your hand out to the government and we'll give you money so that you can feed your children. That's criminal. That's crime against humanity. It is absolutely inexcusable, and our government are absolutely constitutionally duty-bound to ensure that the man has gainful employment, or they are committing crimes against the state and treason. So this is what gainful employment is, folks. This is why it's so important to understand the family unit and the economics and the order of the family household to avoid this sort of attack from Satan. Blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.